I never anticipated my life would bring me to this point. I'm Mia, a 38-year-old woman. My husband, Benjamin, thrives in the business world. He's constantly occupied, his time divided between lengthy business travels and countless meetings, always attached to his phone and computer. I've consistently backed his career, fully aware of the immense pressure he faces. Yet, each time he departs for work or dives into his tasks, an unsettling sense of isolation and emptiness envelopes me. Our son, Alexander, is now 20 years old. He despises constraints and yearns for freedom. After 2 years in college, he chose to leave to pursue work, despite our family's financial stability and willingness to support his education anywhere. Alexander secured a job at a local grocery store. He diligently works and typically returns home around midday to relax. This summer has been exceptionally scorching. The oppressive heat infiltrated every nook and cranny of the house. One ordinary day, Benjamin, adhering to his packed agenda, left early for work. As the door shut firmly behind him, the house fell into a profound silence. Alone in the vastness of our home, I felt the solitude. Alexander continued his morning shift, and as always, he would return at noon. The sun blazed overhead, its rays intensifying the heat across the yard. Seated by the window, I gazed outside with melancholy. The distant sound of footsteps signaled Alexander's arrival. He entered, sweat trickling down his face, his shirt clinging damply to his skin. "Mom, it's unbearably hot today," Alexander exclaimed, placing a bag of snacks on the kitchen counter. I smiled, observing my son maturing, my heart swelling with indescribable emotions. He reached for a cold bottle from the fridge and settled into an old wooden chair. The room returned to its usual quiet, with only the ceiling fan's hum, and the soft drip of condensation from the bottle breaking the silence. We sat, each lost in our thoughts amidst the oppressive summer heat. That afternoon, the heat became overwhelming, prompting me to shower for relief. Approaching the bathroom, I heard water running. As I drew nearer, I noticed the door slightly ajar, allowing a sliver of light to escape. Through the opening, I glimpsed Alexander under the shower. Although I am his mother, witnessing this moment unexpectedly quickened my heartbeat, an inexplicable tension overtaking me. Alexander remained oblivious to my presence, immersed in his shower. The warmth I felt wasn't solely from the weather, something indefinable stirred within me. Unable to comprehend my emotions, I wanted to retreat before being noticed. But as I stepped back, I accidentally knocked over a mop, the clatter echoing loudly. The noise startled me, my heart constricting with anxiety. Without glancing back, I hurried to the living room, hoping Alexander was unaware of my intrusion. Settling into a chair, my heart raced, my breath quickened, my body trembling as though I had narrowly escaped a perilous situation. The sound of the falling mop reverberated in my mind, fearing Alexander might recall or sense anything amiss. Yet, the house remained silent, no footsteps emerged from the bathroom. I tried to steady myself, but the inner chaos refused to abate. Alexander's image lingered vividly, hauntingly in my thoughts. I'm not sure why, but that moment seemed to stir something deep within me that I had long tried to suppress. The blend of shame and guilt left me both bewildered and anxious. I began to pace the living room, attempting to banish the image from my mind, but it persistently resurfaced, unsettling me. The sound of running water ceased, and soon after, Alexander emerged. He was draped only in a towel, droplets of water glistening on his broad shoulders. I stole a quick glance at him before swiftly averting my gaze, consciously avoiding his eyes, though I couldn't conceal the turmoil within. Alexander observed me briefly, then offered a slight smile. "Mom, did you hear a noise?" Something seemed to fall. I struggled to keep my voice steady, even though it trembled slightly. "Oh, that was me," I dropped the mop. "It's nothing," I replied, feeling the tremor in my words as I turned away to mask my anxiety and embarrassment. With a nonchalant shrug, Alexander retreated to his room, closing the door behind him. The house returned to an oppressive silence, but my mind was anything but quiet. The heat within me, exacerbated by the summer weather and the lingering image of Alexander, left me trapped between reality and unsettling thoughts I wished to dismiss. I sank into a chair, cradling my head in my hands, trying to dispel the persistent images. Mia, what are you doing? I internally chastised myself, my inner voice laden with fear and shame. Though I tried to compose myself, since that day, my perception of Alexander had shifted. I couldn't fathom why, nor how to extricate myself from this whirlwind of confusing emotions. Time passed, and the next morning followed its usual rhythm. Benjamin, as always, ate breakfast hastily, his eyes glued to his phone, scanning every email and message. I silently set the table, striving to maintain a calm demeanor, though sadness crept in when he mentioned his imminent week-long business trip. Despite being accustomed to Benjamin's hectic schedule, each announcement of his departure still caused my heart to sink. A sense of emptiness, like an encroaching shadow, enveloped me. "Don't worry, I'll handle everything at home after this trip," Benjamin assured, his voice slightly rushed. He forced a smile before departing. The sound of the door closing reverberated, leaving the space in a vague silence. Alexander sat opposite me, gently stirring his coffee. His eyes were contemplative, tinged with fatigue and introspection. Once Benjamin was gone, Alexander looked up, seeking understanding in my eyes. "Mom, I have a week off from the store. How about we go on a trip? It's been ages since we've had a family outing." I offered a sorrowful smile, shaking my head, regret flickering in my eyes. "Your dad's really busy, away for the whole week," I explained, noticing the slight sadness in Alexander's eyes, his lips pressed as if restraining words. He remained silent, nodding slightly, then rose to clear the table. I sensed his yearning for a genuine family trip, free from work and distance. After breakfast, it was just the two of us in the house. I pondered how long it had been since I truly sat down to listen to Alexander, his thoughts, feelings, and dreams. Time, like an unyielding current, had swept us into our routines, preventing us from pausing and truly seeing each other. We sat together in the living room, a gentle breeze drifted through the partially open window, carrying a hint of freshness. Soft sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting warm patterns on the carpet. "Mom, I have a lot I want to share with you," Alexander said, his voice deeper and more mature than before. "Whatever it is, I'm here to listen," I replied with a reassuring smile, my eyes inviting him to open up. He began to recount stories from his daily life at the shop, quirky customers and amusing incidents that had brought laughter to his days. I listened intently, feeling as though I was rediscovering a connection that had slowly waned over the years. Alexander's eyes sparkled with delight as he recounted these memories, filling my heart with a comforting warmth. Time seemed to slip away as we conversed, the distance between us vanishing. In a light-hearted moment, I teased, "You've grown so much. Have you thought about finding a girlfriend?" Alexander chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Mom, I notice the neighborhood girls watching me whenever I walk by," he joked, laughter ringing out. "But let's save that talk for another time. Right now, I'm focused on work," he said, blending humor with sincerity. Our conversation flowed, revisiting cherished memories of family picnics and childhood mischief that once earned him scoldings from Benjamin and me, only to end in shared laughter. The room buzzed with laughter and vibrant stories, as if time had rewound to those joyful days. The sun climbed higher, its light streaming through the window, brightening and warming the space. I felt a lightness in my heart, as though the unseen barrier between Alexander and me had been bridged by love and understanding. A serene silence settled, the clock revealing it was nearly noon. We both grew quiet, lost in personal reflections, yet the atmosphere between us was now warmer and more intimate. Then, Alexander looked directly into my eyes and posed a question that left me speechless. His voice, deep yet clear, cut through the quiet. "Mom, did you see me yesterday when I was in the shower?" My heart raced, my cheeks flushed with heat at his question. I found myself at a loss for words, my mouth dry. Alexander's gaze was steady, filled with curiosity and patience, awaiting my response. Without giving me much time to process, he continued, his voice softer, as if to ease the tension, "Actually, yesterday I knew you were there, but I chose not to acknowledge it." His admission felt like a tight grip on my heart, blending embarrassment with concern. Thoughts spiraled in my mind. Alexander knew. Why had he remained silent until now? I tried to form words, but they lodged in my throat. Our eyes remained locked, an indescribable sensation passing between us. Just as I was about to speak, Alexander broke the silence. "Mom, I have feelings for you," he confessed, his voice gentle yet resolute. "I like you not as a mother but as something more." His unexpected revelation left me stunned. A whirl of emotions surged within me, surprise, anxiety, and something elusive. My heart seemed to pause. His gaze held mine, imbued with seriousness and an unspoken hope. I sat in silence, grappling with the truth now laid bare. My heart fluttered, caught in the complexity of Alexander's words. "You asked if I wanted a girlfriend, but in my heart, it's you I desire," he admitted. I felt a constriction in my chest, my heart pounding, a sensation I hadn't felt in a long time. Caught in a whirlwind of surprise and confusion, I struggled to articulate my jumbled thoughts, only to be met with silence. Alexander sat close by, his eyes tender and full of concern, as if he could sense the turmoil within me. My heart was torn by self-doubt. How could I feel this way when I had been detached for so long? Did I have the right to feel vulnerable and youthful again? "Are you serious?" I asked, the words escaping through trembling lashes, but Alexander remained silent. Instead, he took my hand, warm and reassuring, like the first breath of spring. The gentleness in his eyes seemed to dissolve my worries. He pulled me into an embrace, his arms enveloping me, offering solace from my uncertainties. The sound of his heartbeat resonated like a calming rhythm, and his breath warmed my skin. "I just want you," he whispered, his words enveloping me like a silken mist. My heart tumbled and turned, restless and conflicted. In that moment, I realized that no words could express my feelings as clearly as the comfort of Alexander's embrace. With that first exchange, all boundaries seemed to vanish. We surrendered to each other, oblivious to the outside world. From that day forward, a secret bound us, a clandestine and perilous connection. Whenever Benjamin was away, the usually quiet house buzzed with unspoken tension. Alexander's gaze ignited something within me that I couldn't resist. The thrill of a closing door, the careful footsteps, and the hurried embrace felt like we were defying the world. We both understood that this relationship was fraught with risk, destined to bring heartache. Yet, despite everything, we were drawn to each other, like moths to a forbidden flame. In those stolen moments, I didn't dwell on consequences or guilt. I only knew that the forbidden nature of our bond made it irresistibly compelling. But every secret has its end, and deep down, I feared the day the truth would unravel everything we held dear. Alexander and I continued to navigate a delicate balance between emotion and reason. Each encounter brought with it a mix of embarrassment and undeniable desire, evident in our glances and inadvertent touches. This internal struggle tormented me daily, yet I couldn't bring myself to stop. We shared moments that shouldn't exist, filled with emotion and tinged with guilt. One afternoon, Benjamin returned home unexpectedly early. The sound of the car in the driveway and the key turning in the lock left me frozen, fear surging through me. Alexander and I barely managed to part, our eyes reflecting confusion and anxiety. Benjamin entered, his face weary yet observant. He looked at us, suspicion flickering in his eyes, though he said nothing. The tension in the room was palpable, like a taut string ready to snap. I knew this couldn't continue. The strain between the three of us was suffocating. I had to confront the reality that this relationship needed to end before it caused irreparable damage. One evening, I called Alexander out to the porch. The dim light cast shadows on his face, his eyes brimming with emotion. "We can't go on like this, Alexander," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I love you as a son, and that's how it should be. Anything else will only lead to pain." Alexander remained silent, his gaze fixed on the ground, sadness etched across his features. Finally, he nodded, his shoulders sagging under the weight of understanding. Our relationship ended quietly, but the pain lingered in both our hearts. Benjamin remained unaware of what had transpired. I resolved to devote more time to my family, to mend the fractures within myself and to rebuild trust. Alexander decided to leave home for a while, seeking balance and a fresh start. I came to understand that loneliness and the yearning for connection can sometimes lead us astray. The most significant lesson I learned was the importance of sincerity and the courage to confront one's own emotions. To safeguard what truly matters, it is essential to relinquish what should not be held onto. The conclusion of this chapter brings a touch of regret and introspection, but also marks the beginning of healing and moving forward. After all I've experienced, I wish to share some insights with those who might be facing similar challenges or emotions. What I discovered is the importance of self-awareness. There was a time when I felt trapped in solitude and emptiness. Instead of seeking solace in the wrong places, I realized the need to confront those feelings head-on. Ask yourself why you feel a certain way and strive to address the underlying issues. Establish boundaries and honor your self-worth when navigating challenging emotions. I learned that maintaining boundaries in relationships is crucial. Respect for yourself and others helps prevent mistakes you might later regret. Communication and connection are vital. If you feel isolated in a relationship, take the initiative to communicate. Sometimes, an open and honest conversation can dispel misunderstandings and strengthen bonds. Forgive yourself and embrace growth. I made mistakes and facing regret was difficult. However, I recognize that self-reproach only aggravates the situation. Learning to forgive oneself is the first step towards healing and progress. Value the relationships that truly matter in the end. I discovered that nothing is more precious than the love and connection with those who genuinely care for you. Don't let fleeting emotions cause you to lose that. If you are experiencing confusion, disorientation, or inner conflict, take a moment to reflect, confront your feelings, and choose the right path. I have learned that true strength lies not only in standing firm, but also in knowing when to let go.